I love how Star Trek Voyager's flashback episode told the story missing from the final original series movie. When Star Trek Voyager's third season premiered in 1996, it surprised fans with a bold two-part opening. Basics, Part 2, followed immediately by Flashback. On the surface, Flashback was a way to celebrate the franchise's 30th anniversary by bringing back familiar faces from the past. But on a deeper level, it did something remarkable. It took an unexplored gap in the original series movie era, between Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and filled it with a story that was never told on the big screen. The result was both a gift to longtime fans and a bridge between eras that might otherwise have remained disconnected. Voyager's tribute with a twist. The premise of Flashback revolves around Tuvok, Voyager's logical Vulcan security officer, suffering from disturbing memory lapses and violent visions. Captain Janeway takes him to a Vulcan ritual called the Mind Meld Regression to uncover the source of his trauma. But instead of a simple glimpse into childhood or some alien psychic infection, viewers are thrown headfirst into a moment from Tuvok's past, his time serving aboard the Excelsior under Captain Hikaru Sulu. This was no random nostalgia trip. The Excelsior had appeared prominently in the Undiscovered Country, commanded by Sulu with Janice Rand as his communications officer. But the movie never gave audiences much time with Sulu's command or what his ship had endured during that critical moment in galactic history. Voyager seized this opportunity, turning Tuvok's trauma into a chance to revisit one of the most important turning points in Star Trek lore: the fallout from Chancellor Gorkon's assassination and the Klingon conspiracy that nearly reignited war. The story the movies didn't tell. The Undiscovered Country focused tightly on Kirk, Spock, and McCoy as they were framed for Gorkon's murder and imprisoned on Rurapent. Meanwhile, Sulu and the Excelsior appeared only sporadically, mainly at the end when Sulu came to the rescue. Fans were left to assume what Sulu and his crew had been doing in the background. Flashback answered that question by showing us a crisis aboard the Excelsior during that same timeline. The episode depicted the ship encountering a Klingon outpost explosion and then enduring a brutal Klingon attack. These events explained why Sulu knew so much about Klingon fleet movements by the time he arrived to save Kirk and Spock in the film's climax. The Excelsior had been in the thick of it, facing the very dangers that the movie could only hint at. It was the kind of story only a series like Voyager could tell. By weaving Tuvok's backstory into this period, the writers gave fans the missing puzzle piece of the Undiscovered Country era. Suddenly, Sulu's command wasn't just a footnote, it became a vital perspective on one of the franchise's most dramatic turning points. Nostalgia done right. One of the episode's greatest strengths is that it didn't rely solely on nostalgia. Yes, it was thrilling to see George Takei back as Captain Sulu, seated proudly in the Excelsior's chair. Yes, Grace Lee Whitney returned as Janice Rand, offering a touching callback to her original series role. But the story wasn't just about cameo appearances. It was about deepening the universe. Tuvok, who had often been portrayed as aloof and detached, suddenly became connected to the larger Star Trek timeline in a meaningful way. His presence on Sulu's ship gave him history outside of Voyager, grounding him in the wider narrative of the Federation. More importantly, his flashback trauma gave audiences a personal lens through which to revisit a familiar era. Instead of watching Sulu's adventure from afar, we saw it through Tuvok's conflicted memory, which added emotional weight. Sulu as the Starfleet captain we deserved. Perhaps the greatest gift of Flashback was giving Hikaru Sulu the command story he never got in the movies. While the Undiscovered Country hinted at his competence and independence, Voyager allowed him to fully embody the role of captain. His calm under pressure, his willingness to defy orders to save Kirk, and his fierce defense of his crew showed the qualities of a great Starfleet leader. Fans who had followed Sulu since the original series finally saw him step out of Kirk's shadow. Flashback let him shine, showing what it meant for a longtime helmsman to evolve into a captain in his own right. It was a satisfying payoff that the films never had time to explore, bridging eras with elegance. Ultimately, Flashback succeeded because it did what the best anniversary episode should. It honored the past while enhancing the present. For Voyager, it was a clever way to give Tuvok a rich backstory,